Om, the Chandogya Upanishad in simple English, presented by Svayam Prakash Sharma, part 12 of 14. This part consists of sections 1 to 13 of chapter 7. Here, the divine sage Narada receives instruction on the universal self from Sanat Kumar, the eternal child. The Upanishad, chapter 7, sections 1 to 13. Narada went to Sanat Kumar, the eternal child, and said, "Teach me, venerable sir." Sanat Kumar said to him, "First tell me what you know, then I will teach you what is beyond that." Narada replied, "Venerable sir, I know the four Vedas. I know the Rig Ved, the Yajur Ved, the Sam Ved, and the Athar Ved. I know the epics and ancient lore as the fifth Ved. I know grammar. I know how to appease the fathers. I know mathematics. I know the science of predicting the future. I know the science of time. I know logic. I know ethics. I know politics. I know the science of the gods. I know the science of sacred knowledge. I know the science of the elemental spirits. I know the science of weapons. I know astronomy. I know the science of serpents. And I know the fine arts. This is all that I know, venerable sir. But, respected sir, I am like one who knows only the words, but who does not know the spirit, who does not know the self, the Atma. I have heard from those like you that he who knows the self, he crosses over sorrows, he overcomes sorrow. Dear sir, I am such a sorrowing one. Please help me to overcome sorrow. Help me to cross over to the other side of sorrow." Thus addressed, Sanat Kumar said to Narad, "Truly, whatever you have learnt is only a name. All that you spoke of, all these are mere names. The Rig Ved, the Yajur Ved, the Sam Ved, the Atharva Ved, the epics and ancient lore as the fifth Ved, grammar, appeasement of the fathers, the science of numbers, the science of predicting the future, the science of time, logic, ethics, politics, the science of the gods, the science of weapons, the science of serpents, and fine arts. All this is mere name. Meditate on the name as Brahm. He who meditates on name as Brahm, he becomes independent so far as name goes by meditating on name as Brahm." Narad asks, "Venerable sir, is there anything greater than name?" "Yes, there is something greater than name. Speech is greater than name. It is through speech that we know all these. It is through speech that we know the Rig Ved, the Yajur Ved, the Sam Ved, the Athar Ved, legend, ancient lore, grammar, the rites of the fathers, mathematics, the science of portents, the science of time, logic, ethics and politics, the science of the gods, the science of sacred knowledge of the Vedas, the science of elementals, the science of rulership, astronomy, the science of snake charming, of the fine arts, as well as heaven and earth, air and space, water and heat, gods and men, beasts and birds, grass and trees, animals, worms, flies, ants, the right and the wrong, the true and the false, the good and the bad, the pleasing and the unpleasing. If there were no speech, we would not know right from wrong. We would not know the true from false. We would not know the good or the bad, the pleasing or the unpleasing. The speech, indeed, is that which makes all this known to us. Therefore, meditate on speech. He who meditates on speech as Brahm, he becomes independent so far as speech reaches by meditating on speech as Brahm. Is there anything greater than speech? Yes, there is. Mind is greater than speech. Just as the closed fist holds two fruits, even so does the mind hold the two, speech and name. If through the mind one wishes to learn the sacred hymns, then he learns them. If he has a mind to perform sacred works, then he performs them. When in his mind he desires sons and cattle, it is then that he desires them. When in his mind he wishes to have this world and heaven, then he desires them. Mind is indeed the self. Mind is indeed the world. Mind is indeed Brahm. Therefore, meditate on the mind. He who meditates on mind as Brahm, he becomes independent so far as the reach of the mind is by meditating on Brahm as the mind. Is there anything greater than the mind? If so, please tell me. Yes, there is something greater than the mind. Will is greater than the mind. For when one wills, it is then that one reflects. It is then that one utters speech. It is then that one says names. And names include the sacred hymns and the sacred works. All these all these are centered in the will. They have will as their soul, and they abide in will. Heaven and earth were formed through will. Air and ether were formed through will. Water and heat were formed through will. Through all these, having been willed, rain became willed. Rain having been willed, through it, food became willed. Food having been willed, through it, living creatures were willed. Living creatures having been willed, through them, sacred hymns became willed. Sacred hymns having been willed, through them, sacred works became willed. Sacred works having been willed, through them, the world became willed. The world having been willed, through it, everything became willed. Such is will. Therefore, meditate on will. He who meditates on will as Brahm, he obtains the worlds he has willed. If he himself is permanent, the worlds he obtains are also permanent. If he himself is unwavering, his worlds are also unwavering. As far as will goes, so far is he independent. He who meditates on will as Brahm, is there anything greater than will? If so, please tell me what it is. Thought is greater than will. It is only when one thinks, then one wills. It is then that one reflects, and it is then that he utters speech and says the name. The sacred hymns are included in name, and sacred works are included in the sacred hymns. All these are centered in thought. They have thought for their goal, and they abide in thought. Therefore, even if a man has much learning but is unthinking, people say of him that he is nobody, in spite of what he knows. Truly, if he did indeed know, he would not be so unthinking. On the other hand, if he is thoughtful, even though he may know little, people desire to listen to him. Indeed, thought is the center of all these. Thought is their soul. Thought is their support. Therefore, meditate on thought. He who meditates on thought as Brahm, he obtains the world he has thought of. If he himself is permanent, he obtains the permanent worlds. If he himself is established, he obtains the established worlds. If he himself is unwavering, he obtains the unwavering worlds. As far as thought goes, so far is he independent. He who meditates on thought as Brahm. Dear sir, is there anything greater than thought? If so, please tell me. Yes, contemplation. The concentration of all our thoughts on one point is certainly greater than thought. The atmosphere contemplates as it were. The heaven contemplates as it were. The waters, the mountains, the gods and men all contemplate as it were. Therefore, he among men who contemplates here attains greatness. He seems to have attained a share of a reward of contemplation. Small-minded and petty people are always quarreling. They are abusive and slandering, while superior and large-hearted ones are not, having obtained a share, having obtained a reward of contemplation. Therefore, meditate on contemplation. He who meditates on contemplation as Brahm, so far as contemplation goes, so far is he independent. He who meditates on contemplation as Brahm. Is there anything greater than contemplation, revered sir? If so, please tell me. Yes, there is something greater than contemplation. Understanding is certainly greater than contemplation. It is by understanding that one understands the Rigved, the Yajurved, the Samved, the Atharved. It is through this that one understands the legend and ancient lore as the fifth Ved, grammar, the rites of the fathers, mathematics, the science of reading the signs, the science of time, logic, ethics and politics, the science of the gods, the science of sacred knowledge of the Vedas, the science of the elementals, the science of rulership, astronomy, the science of snake charming, of fine arts, heaven and earth, air and space, water and heat, gods and men, beasts and birds, grass and trees, animals, worms, flies, ants, the right and the wrong, the true and the false, the good and the bad, the pleasing and the unpleasing, the food, drink, and taste, this world and the other of heaven, all this one understands only with understanding. Therefore, meditate on understanding. He who meditates on understanding as Brahm, he attains he attains the world of understanding. He attains the world of knowledge. And as far as understanding goes, so far he is independent. He who meditates on understanding as Brahm. Is there anything greater than understanding, Venerable Sir? Please tell me. Yes, there is something greater than understanding. Strength is greater than understanding. One strong man causes 100 men of understanding to tremble. When one becomes strong, he becomes a rising man. If he rises, he serves wise men. If he serves, he draws near by becoming attached as a pupil. By drawing near, he becomes a seer, he becomes a hearer, he becomes a thinker, he becomes a perceiver, he becomes a doer, he becomes an understander. By strength stand the earth, atmosphere, the heaven, the mountains, the gods, the men, beasts and birds, grass and trees, animals, worms, flies and ants, all of them stand. By strength the world stands. Therefore, meditate on strength. He who meditates on strength as Brahm. As far as strength goes, so far is he independent. He who meditates on strength as Brahm. Is there anything greater than strength, dear sir? If so, please tell me. Yes, food is greater than strength. Therefore, if one were not to eat for 10 days, even though he might live, he is greatly weakened and he becomes a non-seer, he becomes a non-hearer, he becomes a non-thinker, he becomes a non-understander, he becomes a non-doer, he becomes a non-knower. But as soon as he eats food, and when food enters into him, he again becomes a seer, he becomes a hearer, he becomes a thinker, he becomes an understander, he becomes a doer, he becomes a knower. Therefore, meditate on food. He who meditates on food as Brahm, he attains the worlds of food and drink, and as far as food reaches, so far he who meditates on food as Brahm has unlimited freedom. Dear sir, is there anything greater than food? Yes, my dear, there is something greater than food. Water is greater than food. Therefore, when there is insufficient rain, then living creatures become sick with the thought that food will become scarce. But when there is sufficient rain, then living creatures rejoice in the thought that food will be in plenty. It is just water that assumes different forms of the earth, of the atmosphere, of the sky, of the mountains, of gods and men, of beasts and birds, of grass and trees, of animals, of worms, of flies and ants. Water indeed is all these forms. Therefore, meditate on water. He who meditates on water as Brahm, he obtains all his desires and he becomes satisfied. And as far as water reaches, so far he who meditates on water as Brahm has unlimited freedom. Dear sir, is there anything greater than water? If so, please tell me. Heat is greater than water, for heat takes hold of the wind and warms the ether. Then people say it is hot. It is burning hot. It will rain. Thus does heat show this sign first and creates water. So, with lightnings flashing upward and across the sky, thunders roll. Then people say, there is lightning, there is thunder, therefore it will rain. Heat indeed first indicates this and creates water. Therefore, meditate on heat. He who meditates on heat as Brahm, he, radiant and shining himself, attains radiant and shining worlds, freed from darkness. As far as heat reaches, so far he who meditates on heat as Brahm has unlimited freedom. Venerable Sir, is there something greater than heat? If so, please tell me. Yes, there is something greater than heat. Ether or space is greater than heat, is greater than fire, for it is in space that both the sun and the moon exist, as do lightning, the stars, and fire. Through space one calls, through space one hears, through space one answers. In space one enjoys himself, and in space one does not enjoy himself. One is born in space, and one is born into space. Therefore, meditate on space. He who meditates on space as Brahm, he attains the worlds of space and of light, unconfined and extending far and wide. As far as space goes, so far does he who meditate on ether as Brahm have unlimited freedom. Dear sir, is there something greater than space? If so, please tell me. Yes, there is something greater than space, and that is memory. Therefore, if many people assemble, and if they have no memory, they would not hear anyone at all. They would not think. They would not understand. But if they remember, then they would hear. Then they would think. Then they would understand. Through memory, one recognizes one's sons and one's cattle. Therefore, meditate on memory. He who meditates on memory as Brahm, as far as memory reaches, so far he has unlimited freedom. He who meditates on memory as Brahm. Reverend Sir, is there something greater than memory? If so, please tell me. This concludes part 12 of the Chandogya Upanishad. Om Shanti 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 Om.